Yeah, so there's a question from Joshua.
Mm-hmm.
What are the current regulations on employers cutting the pay of workers in a time like this? Surely
Our
there are
lawyers
permanent
law.
workers that are getting a pay cut. What can they do about it?
I think there are three things here, right? One, people who are getting, well, I think the common theme among people who have like lost their jobs or have their jobs affected is one, they are forced to go into annual leave. Uh, or rather, employers treat this as, a period where their employee takes an annual leave, therefore finds it a reason like, no pay them lah. Or, I know, sorry, treats it, therefore have their annual leave deducted. That's one. Two is some people are being forced to go on unpaid leave as well. And then three, you have people who are retrenched and dismissed. So maybe
So,
we could like address. Sorry.
because under the Employment Act, I don't think you can cut your pay more than a certain percentage, right? So, but even then, right? Even let's say pre-COVID-19, let's say on a normal working day, normal working culture, whatever it is, there are many people that are not aware of these rights. So they have their pay cut, all the time. Especially people like that are working in the construction and stuff like that, migrant workers and all that. So I think it's going to be tough to ensure the enforcement. Let's say if the government comes up with a plan to say that there shouldn't be more than a certain amount of percentage of pay cut for this group of employees or whatnot. But there may be a problem in its implementation, and I think I've seen firsthand also how this arises lah. Many people are exploited without them realizing it lah. And more often
Yeah.
than not, they tend to just shut up because having the job itself is more important than arguing what they think may trigger their bosses and whatnot lah. It's a bit like Stockholm syndrome.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think like generally, I mean, salary reduction would require the employee to consent first to that reduction. So I think like if your employer, I'm not sure whether, given that the extraordinary circumstances that we're in, um, not sure if, not sure. I don't think an employer can do that without telling you first that, hey, I'm cutting your pay. Are you okay with this?
Yeah, I mean,
Wouldn't that amount to breach of contract? Say when you cut someone's pay without actually getting their consent.
because sometimes they don't care because they'll be like, these fellas have nothing, they can't do anything about it and all that. Unless you I mean, if you're more of a middle income kind of fella, then maybe you have a chance lah, that kind of thing. But okay, can we get back to the stimulus package? Like,
Sure.
so just
Yeah,
want to
sure.
ask about the legality of it, because I think there are some questions that have been raised as well, whether the 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 production of this stimulus package is through legal means lah, meaning that it has gone through the necessary processes lah before it was announced.
As a non-lawyer, I think I'll listen first, basically.
So basically, whatever I'm saying is based on Limbre Jet's article lah, which I mean
I wait
I
here.
thought about it as well in my mind. Like, I'm pretty sure they needed some kind of like approval from Parliament, right? Because like you see US, US, but they say UK, Canada, and all that, right? They had to go through the House of Representatives in order to pass the stimulus package.
US also went to Congress actually.
Yes, just went through Congress, yeah.
Mm.
So, I mean, in the article, it stated that he lays out the process in which the stimulus package has to go through lah, before it gets announced, before it gets approved and all that. So he says there needs to be a legislation that is passed lah, or debated upon, that authorizes this expenditure. And basically, there's been no parliament sitting since the next one is in May. So the question is whether they purposely, I don't know, they could do it through what you call that, private finance initiatives, meaning that if it was privately financed by certain institutions, then the 25 billion which they are pumping in, then it's legal lah. But the question then arises as to who is providing that finance lah, whether they're transparent with where the money is coming from, which is important, right? Especially if our government is going to spend this amount. Yeah. So I don't know. Do you think that they purposely did it in a way because they don't want to have a parliament sitting at the moment? They don't want to have the other question decided as to who really is the prime minister and all that.
I think I would be a devil's advocate here, and I would say that the these current circumstances that we're in necessitates the government taking drastic actions without going through the usual parliamentary process. I think it's debatable. Whether or not government can do that without going through the parliament. I will go with the idea that this falls within the purview of the government already. You don't need
Because
to go
the federal constitution, wait, is it federal constitution? Let me see. Article 102
Okay.
specifies the way in which money could be spent in unusual circumstances, but there's still a strict adherence that is required to like the supply bill and all that. So they still have to follow the procedure that is laid out. So if they can circumvent it like this, then what's to stopping them from just like
I get what you mean.
you know these restrictions are there for purpose, right?
Let me read
Interesting. I think
Sorry, I just saw this article like 15 minutes
Yeah,
before
yeah,
the stream.
exactly. Like I'm running through it myself. I think let me see. Supplementary supply bill. So this says basically you need an act before you what do you call that?
Something needs to be passed, or either it's a private finance initiative.
I see.
Yeah.
It's a very good question. To which I no answer for basically.
And no, people may say like, why are you harping on all this? Isn't it important that we have the Bantuan Prihatin Nasional? Why are you all elite class people just thinking about this? No, it's not that we're saying you shouldn't have it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. It's just that you should just go through the process and then pass it, right? Because if it's not legal in the way it was passed, then there's going to be a problem in its implementation in the future. So that's just going to delay the handouts and whatever it is that they intend to do. So they should have just gone through the normal means, the proper procedure, and then just sort it out now. And in fact, if it goes through parliament, then we can have this kind of debate as to what the amount is for this and that, So there's this accountability that needs to be there.
Honestly, no one would have said don't spend this much money because that's an insane thing to say at the moment.
How you spend it.
Yeah. So I the legality of it confuses me. But if I know how parliament works, or like if I know how the government works, there's always loopholes There must be one loophole somewhere that they would have exploited for this essentially. But yeah, sure, Michelle, go ahead.
What do you think about? Can I then say that MCO period is in force? Parliament sitting is not listed as an essential service, so therefore you cannot convene parliament sitting. I mean, this is just me stretching out things, but I think maybe you could explore this as well.
I mean, that's fair enough, but there's a couple things that we can say. One, to pass a bill of sufficient importance,
I
we
think
need
that you can't say that parliament sitting is not an essential service, because it's like it's very dangerous. It's like I could declare something an emergency and say and then list that parliament sitting should not. Yeah, like it's weird lah.
Yeah.
I feel the argument wouldn't hold water lah. Yeah. I don't know if that's the right metaphor or not, but
that argument wouldn't hold water. But another thing that it wouldn't allow is that, well, if you cannot convene parliament, then you cannot pass pass the bill to spend that much money anyway. So you cannot spend money essentially, So this whole stimulus package, if they say parliament sitting is non-essential, memang would not have existed in the first place if it depends on parliament to pass it through. Whether it depends on parliament to pass it through is, as I read Lim Wei Jin's article, it seems that it does need to, but I am not sure how. I'm not sure how it came about if they circumvented parliament.
I should have invited him to join us.
Then
we could have circumvent all this, trying to understand. No, but like from my understanding, and I'm a criminal lawyer, so I don't know. My constitution law isn't that great or whatever it is, so.
Sure.
But from my understanding is that you must go through parliament because you need to have an act. And if you don't have an act, then it will be through a private finance initiative. Then the question is, who is financing us then? Where is this 25 billion coming from? And that's the most important question that we need answer because that's the loophole that you are pointing out. So it's
But then if
important to
it's
know, lah.
private finance, you cannot say it's a fiscal injection by the government as well. So that's
That's
another.
Yeah, you need to declare where it's coming from, right? Like,
Exactly. It's 25 billion gold.
yeah, billion, you know.
So I guess this is one of the things that the government really needs to come clean with, like, where it's getting money from, how it is, which loophole is exploiting, like, essentially. At the end of the day, is what the government.
Or they could have like been in a tight situation, like they would have been like, we can't call everyone to come to parliament now, we can't have some online parliament sitting, you know. So
I mean, whichever the case, if anyone watching this knows how the government is using this money, ask me perhaps. Please comment below with your understanding.
all right.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
just playing
let
the
us know.
devil. I'm just asking, throwing out questions.
Okay.
And I think these are questions that no lah. Just now, I mean, the questions that I put out just now.
Yeah.
Probably the common man would ask this sort of questions.
Mhm.
But I do
Yes,
agree
go
on a
ahead.
personal level that it has to go through the proper processes lah.
So maybe they perhaps should have passed it. They should have. Today they needed time to discuss what the package should be, right? But then again, I can't help but feel like it could have been done earlier. You know, much earlier.
Earlier means what?
Much earlier, like before, like maybe the start of the MCO or like before that even. You know?
Maybe there's also fear that the opposition might not back whatever that's put on the table, and this thing drags out longer than it should, stuff like that.
Which is
It's all
sad,
political.
lah. You know, because they should
Yeah,
be
of
setting
course.
aside their political differences.
No,
Definitely.
I don't think that would have happened with due respect, because this is not the time where it is politically convenient for them to do so in the first place.
Yeah.
So you can look at cases in the U.S. Senate and also the UK Parliament.
Yes.
And those are bitter rivals, and they came together. Because times of war, time of war, you cannot bicker amongst each other, or else you will lose your seat in the next election.
Definitely. But it's also hard to say lah, in Malaysia a lot of things have happened when it shouldn't happen.
I don't know, because like I don't know. Should we go into that kind of like
I don't know.
topic where?
Unless there might be, if there was an extenuating, maybe, I don't know if this is possible lah. So lawyers have to tell me if it is. Is it possible for let's say Muhyiddin, Tan Sri Muhyiddin, sorry, to come up with the stimulus package and then get a signature of more than 111 parliamentarians to back it? Would that be a possibility?
No, I mean like that's not how you pass like legislations. You know, like if you've got to have it in sitting, like you mean otherwise people can just like have, they can just say like, oh, these are times, desperate times, and then they just get signatures of MPs and they can pass legislation that way, which I think it's a bad precedent. Yeah.
I guess so. Just thinking out loud, that was a possibility.
But I mean, they may try some bullshit like that to justify whatever it is that they've done.
And it is bullshit, Tan Sri Muhyiddin. You heard it right here first.
I thought we agreed not to use the
Keeping straight the
honorific
economics.
titles.
Okay. No partisan lines.
No partisan lines. Okay, I mean like, but then a lot of people that are like, I don't know. It's like confirmation bias, right? Like now that there's a stimulus package that's been announced, then this government is the best. I don't know.
I mean, that's the. You see, in times of war, usually the incumbent government will stay on for a long time, and even they will win the next election unless they screw up really badly, lah. And that is because of this kind of like, the desperate times call for desperate measures. This government take care of me kind of thing. People now are looking up to, Trump's, ideas on how to delay payments. They are looking up to Boris Johnson, and just a month ago they were calling both of them idiots. So desperate times kind of like changes the perspective of the whole narrative, and that's why the Pakatan National Government, Perikatan National Government, they gave a value of 250 billion to stimulus package, when in actual fact the money that they are spending is 25 billion. And I know that that's a very technical issue to come across, but the messaging that it sends to the people, they first see the 250 billion, they're quite impressed. So all of this, in the background, they're also selling the idea of a Perikatan National Government being the better of the two.
But it's not fair of a conclusion to make, because we are in extraordinary times, and I don't know, sometimes I also think about, the kind of standards that we have for our government is pretty low. Like,
Yeah.
the government simply discharging its duty to the country is seen as something that is to be applauded. That's something that's concerning and worrying to me lah. Shouldn't the government be expected to do these things? It shouldn't be something that we should all worship and applaud, because they're just doing what they should do, which is to elevate the people's difficulties in such extraordinary times. Yeah.
I think I just want to quickly circle back, because I just want to cover this before we finish. The workers, the impact on workers that you mentioned, Michelle, I think kind of like points to a very important fact that we cannot overlook. So all of this shows the workers being forced to take unpaid leave. They're given slips to sign, where stating that they have voluntarily decided to take unpaid leave, but actually the employers are forcing it upon them. So this really shows that the power imbalance between employers and employees that exists at the moment, where employers are cutting costs everywhere, and one of the ways is to take advantage of the weakness of their employees. And it's very important for us to realize this at this moment, because after we come out of COVID, we must push for more organization of workers, and only with the high organization of workers through unions can we restore the parity between employees and employees, so that this bullshit doesn't happen again. Because let's face it, all of this taking advantage of contract workers, taking advantage of low wage earners, taking advantage of food panda riders or Grab drivers, all of this is occurring because workers are disempowered. And we need to very clearly decide to increase the strength of workers, and we must get on the ground and organize. Power to the people.
Just
But
make sure they wear masks, right?
Yeah.
I think that there are valid concerns on the employer's part, especially in the times like this.
Employees, right? Employers,
Businesses may not be employers. Yeah, with a R. Employers are facing, valid concerns that maybe necessitates laying off some people from their jobs. What do you think about that?
Of course, but those extenuating circumstances are taken without discussion with employees, taken without solidarity with the employees, by asking for fiscal stimulus package from the government, or more support, or some other type of cost-cutting measure, or even discussing with the employees before cutting their wages, or taking a decision to go on like a few months of unemployed leave, really show that employers are deciding for employees, and that needs to stop. It's not that employees are going to say, I'm not going to accept any form of reduction, because employees are, from my experience, they are quite understanding people. But it is on the employer side that they are taking it on in a unilateral decision, which I am against.
Okay.
And like in my opinion as well, there may be certain costs that is reduced during the MCO period, like you don't use aircon. I don't know, stuff like that, right? But like I think they should be treating like these employees at this point in time like fixed costs lah. That if you can't sustain this cost, then your business, I don't know.
See, employees are now treated as huge liabilities, like especially contract employees, because like you're on a 0-hour contract, you can be cut off at any time, and that's it lah. Basically, you're out of a job, the employer saves money. This kind of attitude needs to change, And I'm not saying that all employers do this, and I'm not saying that all employees are bad people only looking to save money, but we must realize that this is a specific vulnerability within the sector that we must address.
I also think that this is where the government must intervene, either through regulations or laws to better
Mm.
protect the rights of workers. I feel like even in even if we are not in COVID-19, this happens. But
Mm.
because of COVID-19, even more. I mean, these kind of things are happening even more because businesses are not doing well
Mm.
and whatnot lah.
Exactly.
So moving forward, what would you like propose that maybe the government should look into post
Mm.
COVID-19?
So the employment act needs to change. It needs to give power back to workers through organizations and through unions. So, for example, now for a worker to even form a union is such a hassle because they need to go to the employer, they need to get the employer's signature on it, they need to have a vote where the employer decides like how many percentage of employees, sorry, 51 percentage of employees need to be included, but they kind of decide things like, oh, it's not that the percentage of employees who come out to vote, but the total percentage of employees. So if you have only 80% of employees coming out to vote, and even if you get like 50% of them voting, 51% voting for you, for the total employees that are coming out to vote is only 40%. So you cannot form a union. So things like that specific vulnerabilities that have given employers a lot of power. So if the government really is serious, they need to amend this Employment Act. They need to make sure that unions are mandatory in all sectors, in all levels of employment, and only through this radical approach can we actually form true collaborative understanding between the employee and employer. That's my opinion, at least.